Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for coming to Action Builder 102, part of our Action Builder 100 series. Because this is the second Thursday of the month, we're going to be starting January with the 102 tasks and events training. Um, but we will be holding an extra session the last Thursday of the month to make up for the fact that January 1st was a holiday. So if you missed getting started Action Builder 101 in a previous month, I'm going to put a link in the chat and you can register for it as well. And you can join us kind of a little bit out of order, but at the end of the month. We also have a list of evergreen training links that if that's not where you signed up for this one, you can find it here at this link in the chat. So thanks for joining us. My name is Jen D'Agostino. I am on our impact team here at Action Builder, and today we're going to be going through tasks and events. So thanks so much for coming. So let's see, got a lot of windows open here. So our agenda today, first, we're going to talk about the tasks tool. What is it? How can you use it? What's the goal? Then we'll talk about creating, editing, and duplicating tasks, how your activists and organizers will view and complete tasks, and then events, which is slightly different, has a few extra bells and whistles, but works very similar to the tasks process and helps you with turnout for events. I'll save some time at the end if you have any questions, or you can add questions in the chat. Throughout the training, you won't be able to come off mute, but I'll be keeping an eye on the chat on my second screen here, so feel free to ask questions as we go along. Okay. So, what are tasks? So, tasks are a way for you to maximize your outreach, to create out of all of the information that you're collecting across your different entity types, to create a streamlined flow that gives assignments to your organizers and activists, helps them build relationship, as well as enter their own data and take responsibility for the work that they're doing in the field. And it saves everyone time. The organizers who don't have to be doing data entry from data that was collected externally, the activists who don't have to try to track down the organizers to share their data, they can just put it in, and the campaign leads who can like see everything that's going on in the field all at once. So it really is, as a former organizer, one of my favorite things about Action Builder. I already talked about empowering your activists. So let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen or share my universe. So this is a campaign that I've been working on. It's fake data, obviously, and you can see the wall chart. You've got your folks here. One thing that I do want to share in the chat is a link to our grid on what kinds of users can access what kinds of things. So something that is really great is that once we go through and create a task and build TERFs, you can give assignments to activist level users who don't see anything, who don't have access to the wall chart at all. They can just get a list of their assignments, and it can help them focus, and it will help them kind of take some ownership before you're ready to hand over the keys to organizers who are just getting started or activists who are, just starting to step up. So there's a couple of ways you can start with tasks. The first is basic. You can go to tasks and kind of create one from scratch, which is what we'll do. I also want to point out if you have a complicated query and you've used complex filters or the filter bar here to create a very targeted group that you'll be reaching out to. You can use the bulk edit button and select add to task. And then you can create a task around that list that you've already generated. You can also build your lists from within tasks, but this is a relatively new feature. Some folks were saying, sometimes I build complicated lists and don't want to have to redo my work. So you could do that here. So let's go to tasks and we'll get started. So your assigned tasks, everyone will have access to this tab, and this will be the tasks that are assigned to you to complete. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Here, if you click on Manage Tasks, you'll be able to see your outstanding tasks that you have work that's happening in the field. And if you toggle this Show Past Due, you'll be able to see a history of what your old tasks were. So and you can see a lot of these are related to events. This one is not an event. One of the things about this is that you can duplicate a task that has already been created. So if you've done the work, maybe it's a membership meeting that happens monthly, and you don't want to have to recreate everything from scratch, you can click these three dots here and click duplicate task, and that will duplicate all of the work that you've already done to set up your task. For now, we're going to walk through creating a new task. So click the new task button. Here we'll give your task a name. So let's say, for example, we're hosting a training on the last Thursday of the month, like I said, for Action Builder getting started right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the date of January 29th, and the task name is Action Builder 101 getting started training. We could use events for this, but I'm going to start with traditional tasks, just so you can see how it works. Here, by default, the task is assigned to your default type of entity for the campaign. But this campaign has organizations and people. So you can use tasks for things like worksite visits, where the individuals are not the targets, but the work sites are. And so you want to make sure that all of the work sites have a health and safety inspector on site. Or here, in the case of organizations, maybe you want to get co-sponsors for an action. And so you're calling through a list of organizations. In this case, we're going to do people. The enable canvassing option, if you ever have any questions, you can hover your mouse over these little eyes and they will provide you more information. Enable canvassing lets you track attempts. So I contacted this person. I actually got through to them. This person wasn't home, which is really helpful if you're doing house visits. I called this person, but they didn't answer. I left a voicemail. I skipped this person for whatever reason. So enable canvassing can be really helpful. I'm going to turn it on. The one downfall of enable canvassing is that you have to choose a type. So home visit, which will only choose from people who have home addresses. Text bank, which will only choose from people who have textable phone numbers or phone numbers that are marked as cell phone. And then phone bank, only people who have phone numbers. So if you have a lot of missing data, for example, if you're doing worksite visits, or if you're doing check-in for an event, so if you're doing using tasks for check-in, which we can talk about as well. You may not want to enable canvassing, but if you're doing a particular type of outreach where you're going to be calling everyone anyway, then canvassing can be helpful. So we'll do a phone bank. And then here, enable turf notification. This toggling it on or off will send an email when you make an assignment. So we'll leave it turned on for now. So I'm going to create the task. Now, there's a lot of information on this page. The to-dos are the questions you want people to ask. The universe are the people that you're going to be reaching out to. And this information on the right is the details of your task. So here we have information, and this is basically a script. Your organizers or activists will see this whenever they log in and whenever they're having these conversations. So here under the description, I'm going to click the plus button and start typing my script. Hi, my name is Nate. I'm with going to invite you to attend our Action Builder 101 Getting Started training, etc. You can also include links here. We can say share this link if you need more info. And so you can provide information for your activists to be able to answer things on the fly. You can include different formatting, line breaks, that sort of thing. And so I'm going to click update, and you can see that over here, and you'll see that when folks get their assignments. You select the date that it's due. So I'm going to stop doing phone calls on that Monday. It's a phone bank. Now here, once I have my script, I'm going to select my to-dos. So here I will click the Add To-Do button, and this will allow me to add core fields, or connections that folks are going to be collecting information about. So perhaps you want to include a note. We'll want to know, whether they're willing to volunteer, maybe other people that they know. And so if I look on the wall chart, I'm going to open this in a separate tab. And I go look at a person. There's a lot of tabs. There's information here. There's their info. There's lots of custom fields in this universe, history of notes, etc. On the tasks, we say just focus on these 3 questions. We don't want you to worry about anything else. So the adding to-dos lets you really focus an organizer and activists' work so that they don't get distracted, that it's not confusing. Okay, so then we need to create the universe of people that we want to reach out to. So you could, like I said, from the wall chart, you could start at that step by saying add to task, and I want to add this query, and start with that as the universe and then build out these other pieces. Or you can build the query here. So you can either add everyone in the campaign, or you can create query and it will bring up a user interface that it is just like the filter bar on the wall chart. So if you have a saved query, you can load it If you have complex filters, you can load it, or you can just build it from scratch. Like, I want to invite my ones, twos, and threes. I don't want to invite anyone I haven't assessed yet. And click apply, and you'll get a pop-up from the system telling you, do you want to proceed? Click OK, and then it will add folks. You could also just click add all people in campaign and click OK. And then it's just going to replace your query with everyone who's in this campaign. So this is our universe of people we could potentially, or that we're planning to reach out to. And now we can create TERFs. So there's 3 ways to do it. You can manually create TERFs and give assignments to people, and you can select specific names and give them to specific organizers, which is possible, painstaking, and I don't know of anyone who does it. You can create TERFs via map. So if you're doing house visits, you can open a map, zoom in on the map, and you can draw TERFs for people to visit. And you can draw multiple TERFs at once. So I'm going to click the Start Drawing TERF. Click and make my boxes. Stop drawing TERF. Start drawing TERF. Click and make my boxes, etc. So you can use maps that way. I'm not going to do that right now. And then you can auto create TERFs. So here you can auto create TERFs either based on size. So if you're doing a phone bank and you want everyone to have 10 phone calls, you can just randomly assign people based on phone calls. But you can also do it based on field response or connection. So field response is really cool because if someone is assigned as an organizer, so if you have steward assignments or organizing committee assignments, and everyone is assigned using a field to an organizer, you can use that field to cut your TERFs. So if I were to create TERFs, I don't have anyone assigned in this universe. And then the other thing you could do is based on any field, really. So here, maybe we have different people making phone calls to members than to non-members. So we'll do it based on member status, and you can see former member, there's 3 people without the member status filled in, and 8 potential members. So you can do it based on those responses. And the other way you can do it, I'm going to delete all my TERFs. The other way you can do it is based on connection. So if it's based on organizations and you're going to be handing out assignments to your organizational contacts, or if it's based on people they're connected to, it works the same way as field responses. So I'm going to do it just based on size. We're going to create 4 TERFs that are 10 each, and it creates them automatically. The exclamation point means that we have added people to our query by clicking the add all people in campaign. We've added people to the query who don't have phone numbers, and this is a phone bank type task. So you'll see this if you've added people for a house visit type task who don't have home addresses, or text bank type tasks that don't have textable numbers. So in those cases, you might want to use a query. We're going to leave it, and I will show you what that looks like for a user if they get an assignment like that. So once you have your TERFs, any questions so far? Great. Feel free to type them in the chat as if you have any questions, if they come up while you are watching. So once you have your turfs created, you can assign them to your organizers and activists. So click the three dots next to the name. You can rename your turf. So if I don't want these to be turf 1, turf 2, turf 3, turf 4, I can rename them. So, Jen's Halls, and I will call this one Nick's Halls. I will call this one Clementine's Halls. That's my cat. You get it. So you can rename them if they particularly make sense to have different names. If you're using a field response, it'll be the responses will automatically be the names instead of turf 1, turf 2, turf 3, turf 4. Okay. So when I click on the three dots again, I can then assign the turf. So if I click on assign turf, I'll be able to select a user from this campaign. So here I'm going to select this one. You can also assign turf to multiple users at once. And we'll talk about that in a minute about how it can be useful for event attendance. And so you can go through and assign each one. I'm going to assign this one to the Action Builder support user. I'm going to assign this one also to Gen Activists. So you can assign the same user to multiple turfs, and you can assign multiple users to the same turf. And I'm going to assign this to that person. Okay. So we have all of our turfs who are assigned. If I go to my inbox, I should see a bunch of emails with a notification that says you've been assigned a task. This is the name of the task. This is the day that it's due. Click here to get started, and it will take you to the tasks, your assigned tasks page. So here I'll see the name of the task, the name of the turf, who made the assignment, how many people are in it, and when it's due. And again, for organizers and activists, leads and admins as well, but for users who are using this your assigned task page, you can toggle the show past due, and you can see the ones that were completed in the past or due in the past. And then ones that are visible are due in the future. So I'm going to click on my assignment, and I will see this is my list of people that are due. I can toggle on just my unfinished targets. So if this is something that's happening, like worksite visits that are happening over the course of a week, or a committee assignment to reach out to folks before the next committee meeting, they can toggle on and off to see either everyone or just the folks who are assigned. Over here on the right-hand sidebar, you can click the read more and they'll see everything that you put in the description section as their script. And now I can click on the first person. I'll see this is their name. I give them a call. Bruce doesn't answer, so I say attempted and move to the next target. I call Clint. His number was been disconnected, is no longer in service. I'm going to mark it as bad and move on to the next target. Here, John Constantine, I call. We have a great conversation. So I'm going to have a great conversation, interested in learning more. he's willing to be a volunteer. So I'm going to click the add button and it will let me add a response. I'm going to add a little note because it's a note type field. And oh, he mentioned while we were talking that he had a relationship, so I'm going to add that. I'm going to add that relationship. So, and those are just the questions that we've asked them to ask. Again, we can see the script. As I fill out the things, it checks off to say that I've checked it off. So here with the note, I typed in a note, but I didn't save it. So add note doesn't have a checkbox next to it. I have to click save for it to save. The other thing you can do before moving on is that by default with tasks, everyone has a flag for follow-up flag at the top of the record. So I'm going to click flag for follow-up and say, Jen needs to have a conversation with him to confirm and assign it to that user. And that will save the flag. And then I had a conversation with this person, so I'm going to mark it as successfully contacted and move on to the next target. The other thing about this is that the tasks are also mobile optimized. So these views that you've seen so far are the view on a desktop computer, but if I were to shrink this so that the computer thinks that it is a phone size, it would look something like this. All of the stuff from the right-hand sidebar, the script, all of that is here at the top. You can click read more and you can still see the whole script. The to-dos are here with the check boxes that'll appear. And if you click on it, you can just add it quickly rather than having to scroll totally down to the bottom. And the Canvas status is again, it's all in one column so that it is easier to manage on a cell phone. The other thing about, so if I go back to my getting started training and I can see, I'm going to refresh my tab. I can see how many I've completed, how many I haven't started, how many attempts I've had. I can show just the unfinished ones. Here on the activity stream, everything that your organizers and activists do is then being recorded to be viewed by a lead organizer or the organizer managing activists on the activity stream. So you'll be able to see that this was part of a task, and it was part of this task if you have multiple tasks happening at once. The other thing that you can do is on the wall chart under other filters, you can look for folks who have been canvassed or not canvassed. So if we were under canvassing type, I select phone bank. And you can select only the successful attempts or all attempts. If I do successful attempts and then click include so that it says exclude, I can exclude anyone who has been successfully phone banked. And you can even add a target date range. So exclude anyone who has been successfully phone banked in the previous week. The universe is 44 and at least one of the people was successful. So I'm going to click run query and you can see that 43. So if you use a Canvas type task, you can then filter your list based on people who have been or not been successfully phone banked during a particular period of time. Okay. let's go back to the tasks. The thing I wanted to show you was, let's assign this to Action Builder support. So here on the task page, what's really helpful here is this show unfinished task is if you have multiple people who are assigned to the same turf, this show unfinished targets only can be really useful because if multiple people are having conversations, you don't want to contact someone where the task has actually been finished. Um, Let me see. Here we go. I'm going to assign this one to me as well. Trying to find one of those ones that has the bad phone number. Let's see. This person has a, okay. If there was a person, I don't know why it's throwing the angry triangle, but if there was a person who didn't have a phone number, it would be blank in the phone number section. And that's what that triangle typically means. In which case the person can then add it before marking all of the other information. So it's a way to collect data as well. Another thing you can do with tasks is, like I mentioned, um, you can track attendance for an event. You can use it as your sign-in tool. So for example, I'm going to create a new task. I'm going to call it sign in for um, Action Builder 100 series event. We're going to make it people. I'm going to leave canvassing off and I'm going to leave turf notifications off. Add everyone in the campaign. And then here I'm going to add my to-do. And for the field, I'm going to add the response. So let's say it's volunteer shifts completed. Now I'm going to click the three dots here and I can set a default response. And so in this case, I'm going to set this as other, and it'll use today's date. And then here I'm going to add an optional note. I'm going to add a description, sign in for in-person event, put details about welcome here, etc. I'm going to auto create a turf. And here I want just one turf. So I'm going to do, make the turf size huge so that everyone is in one turf. Let's create one big turf. And then I'm going to assign it to everyone so that everyone is working with the same big turf. I'm going to rename it. Event sign in. We'll just call it event sign in. So now when this happens on the wall chart or on the task page, you can see I have it's due today, the sign in. So I'm going to go into my sign in page, or maybe I have it on my phone, right? Someone shows up to the desk and they say, I am Jessica Jones. So I'm going to search for Jessica Jones. I'm going to find her. I don't have anything to add. It's going to automatically do that one. And I'm going to go save and go back to list. And now it automatically added the response to Jessica Jones. And now I'm going to, oh, Gary showed up. So I'm going to click here. And I'm going to click save and go back to list. And Gary showed up. Say someone shows up who did not RSVP or is not already in our universe. I can click if I'm an organizer level user or higher, and click this blue add user or add record. It's a person, and I'm going to say Jen. I'm going to add her. Obviously, have lots of other versions. I'm going to create that person. And not only will it create it, then it's automatically here on the RSVP page or on the quick check-in page. And I can say save and go back to list. And so now if I go to one of these people that I've already checked in, if I click on their name, it'll take me to their record if I have access to that person. And you can see they attended it. It automatically added the default response that I created. And it automatically, because it's a date type field, used today's date. And on the activity stream, you can see that I'm going to refresh the page so that you can see the activity stream with the most recent data, and you can see the automatic information that's recorded from those tasks. So that's tasks. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of information to keep track of. But there is some work that happens on the organizer or lead side of things to get it squared away, but it makes work so much easier for activists and organizers who are gathering the information. Let's talk about events. So the first thing that you have to do with events is turn them on. So if you go to the Customize tab and then toggle on Enable Events. So when you create an event, there are a bunch of automated tasks that will then get created. You can choose here what the default type of task is. So do you want it to be just a standard task, or do you want it to be a canvassing style task, home visit, text bank, or phone bank? In this case, I'm just going to do standard. Click Save Changes and events will be turned on. The other thing that you can do with events is you can create custom fields that are specifically related to your event. So here on the Info tab, you can see in the drop-down menu your different entity types and connection types. Below that, there'll be a section for events. So you can see here that in some previous trainings, we've created fields for events that are related to like accessibility needs. How many guests are they bringing with them? What kind of strike lines, supplies are they bringing? You can also create multiple sections. So for example, I can create a section for and I can create a field that says translation, and let's make it a standard, no, let's make it a note field with a single select, and we'll have ASL and Spanish, French, etc. So you can create as many fields that you need, food selection, food considerations, if you have a food type event, assistance needed, folks that you're bringing, basically questions that are specific to an event that you might want to record information about, but you don't necessarily need it saved permanently on a person's profile with the details there. Now, when we go back to our campaign, if you go to customize, you'll want to turn on, just like you do with other fields, you'll want to go to the info tab. From the drop-down, select events. And if you've created any event fields, you can turn them on here. Just like any other field, you can decide which ones you want turned on for this campaign. So we'll say yes, and let's do guests. You cannot do it on an event by event basis, but you can do it on a campaign by campaign basis. Okay, all right. So the events tab by default will show you upcoming events. We can create a new one. Let's do our same example from the other task. And we'll see what the difference is doing it as a task versus an event task. So we'll do our getting started with Action Builder. We'll call it January 2026, excuse me. We'll select the date and time. You choose it from the drop-down menu here. You can then select an end time, or you can just do the start time and leave it open. If it's virtual, you can include information on how to join virtually. Scripts. If it's an in-person event, you can then add the actual address. We'll do virtual. And then here, the description, again, you can do a script. Hi. Let me explain. YouTube blank. And I text you the link. And then any of the other details here you can include. Here, the user who created the action or the event is automatically the host. And you have the option to create multiple tasks during a certain window of time. So you can have Action Builder create these things for you automatically, or you can decide to create them manually. But by default, when you manually turn on the turnout, the initial turnout calls, then we can automatically confirm 5 days before the event, double confirm 2 days before the event, and then attendance on the day of the event. So let's say I don't want to double confirm. That's fine. You can also create multiple events if there are shifts. So for example, you're doing phone banks and there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday phone banks, and you're looking for folks for each of those days. You can then create multiple events to do that. Our team is working on a sync between Action Builder and Action Network. Right now, events is kind of a non-complete sync. We do have we'll talk a little bit in Action Builder 104 sync training later this month about how you can get information from both places for right now. But coming soon, you will be able to sync events between the two systems. So we have a title, we have a description, it's virtual. These are the two types of tasks we wanted to auto create. I'm going to create my event. Over here, you'll see RSVPs and then the 3 sets of tasks. So You can manually decide to double confirm even though we decided not to do it in the automatic one. Here, I'm going to start my process and I'm going to start turnout. And it will take you to a page that looks just like the task page. Here, I'm going to add everyone in the campaign. You'll now see in the to-dos section, you can add to-dos like usual. So, if we want to keep track that they mentioned they know someone and we want to add any qualitative notes, but you'll see that automatically it includes this RSVP to do. Now here, we're going to create TERFs. And we'll do it based on member status and have different people contact members and non-members. And I'm going to assign my TERFs. So far it looks just like a task. If I go to my task tab, the events are there. You can see why we hide the past due ones because it gets kind of cluttered. And you can see that, I've been assigned these two tasks now that are based on an event because they say the word turnout. And if I click on it, it looks just like the other task field. But then when I click into the person's record, you can see that the first response is whether you want to RSVP them or not. So we talked to Barry. Barry's going to make it. I click the RSVP button. And once there's a response, the event questions that we've turned on are now available. So does he need translation? He doesn't need translation. How many guests is he bringing with him? He's bringing 2 guests. We'll move on to the next target. Bruce is not sure if he'll make it, so rather than clicking the RSVP button, I'm going to do tentative. And then once I put in a response, the replies will appear. So events, needs, move on to the next target. This person, Spooner, can't make it. She has a family obligation. So here in the drop-down menu, I'm going to select decline. Even if a person declines, those answers will still appear. So if you have a field that's like, why can't they make it, right? You can capture that information here, say that she needs that information. So now if I go back to events, I can see this event is coming up. And over here, we can see the responses that have started to be collected. So we have one person who's attending, we have one RSVP, one person who is tentative. You can click on that and see the list of who has RSVP'd, who said they're attending, who is tentative. You can also export the list and decide whether you want to export these responses as well, or if you want just the people who have RSVP'd or just the tentative folks. And you can export those as a CSV file, just like you do from the wall chart. The other thing about those events is that, let's see. I'm going to say Jessica Jones so that I can then find her. Okay, so let's find Jessica. We can see on her events tab that she RSVP'd, and that's why there's a checkbox. You can use the drop down to update the information. So say I have a conversation with Jessica outside of the event turnout RSVPs. We happen to have a conversation at the grocery store. I take the opportunity. She confirms, she double confirms. We select that and I can update it so that she's not included in the double confirm process. And then you can see, if you click on the tags, you can see the field responses as well on that person's record. Um, what's cool about this is that on your event, when the event, so here, if anything changes with your event, you can click on the three dots and click on edit. On the event's due date, so if it's the day of an event or the day after, when you're working on turnout, it will automatically switch to attended as opposed to confirmed. And so you can mark them as attended just like you can with the example task that I showed earlier with the quick check-in. So you can mark people as attended. So now on the person's record, you'll be able to see whether they RSVP'd to an event or whether they attended if the event is in the past. So if I go back to Jessica and I go on the events, we can see that since today is the event date now, we can see in the dropdown, we can either mark her as attended or no show. So maybe she didn't actually show up. On a person's record, that will be under the events tab. And so you'll be able to see, or do they have a history of being no-shows? Okay, can we count on them for an event? Why are they no-shows? Kind of what is causing this? What can we do to get them to actually show up? Or is it someone who's reliable, who's at every event? You can see that on the list. And so on the events page, you can then export after the event, after you've marked attended, you can export the RSVPs, the attended, and the confirmed. And these events, much like the turnout events, will happen automatically on the dates that are mentioned. So, or you can schedule it or create it at any point. Because I changed the date, some things are a little weird on this page now. And then the other thing is that on the activity page, you can then see event information. So who attended, who didn't attend, who exported RSVPs, etc. So that is, in a nutshell, how you use tasks and how you use events to use tasks. One of the best things about being able to mark attendance this way is you can create a task to mark attendance or use a quick sign-in task to mark attendance and not have to manually check a piece of paper after an event. So it saves a lot of data entry time. And it gives more power. It empowers the people who are doing the work to take ownership over it. So thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, please contact us at support@actionbuilder.org. As I shared in the chat earlier, this is the second in our Action Builder 100 series. So next week, we will be doing Action Builder 103, which I believe is data and uploads. So hopefully we will see you then. If you have any questions or if you haven't registered for it, please follow the link and you can join us then. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much. Have a great day.